In Nashville's neon glow, there has always been a rumor darker than the cigarette haze hanging over the honky-tonks about an unwritten list tacked to the backs of booking ledgers. Old pickers whisper of it only after the crowd drifts home. Names of women who sang too boldly, argued too loudly, or simply refused to keep pouring coffee for men who fancied themselves kingmakers. If a singer challenged the ritual, her single vanished from playlists, her tour buses stalled, and her story was rewritten as a cautionary tale. Yet music is stubborn. It lingers in dusty grooves and late-night radio waves, waiting for a new ear to lift the needle. Every vanished voice left a trail if you listen closely enough. The first signal crackles through 70-year dust, Kitty Wells humming defiance behind a wavering turntable needle. In 1952, she recorded, "It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels," a lyric that flipped male hypocrisy inside out. Program directors panicked, preachers thundered, and the Grand Ole Opry frowned, but roadside jukeboxes kept coughing up nickels. The single climbed without corporate blessing, proving truth outruns censorship. The music men took notes, deciding the next spark must be stamped out earlier. Charlene Arthur barged along one of those corridors wearing flame-red slacks and wielding a guitar like a pickaxe. RCA signed her for her thunder, then recoiled when she refused to trade swagger for a sugar-sweet grin. She wrote about longing in language that wouldn't blush, and unleashed a growl daring polite society to flinch. Reviewers called her unfeminine, promoters whispered uncontrollable, and within a handful of singles her contract evaporated. Fans mailed letters asking why. They received polite replies praising her spirited approach while announcing no further releases. Loretta Lynn arrived carrying coal dust in her vowels and a notebook full of subjects Nashville kept behind padlocks. Divorce, birth control, factory fatigue, she set them all to danceable shuffles. When the pill hit radio, several stations blacked it out entirely, fearing pulpit fury and sponsor recoil. Loretta laughed and waved a stack of canceled dates as proof controversy sells tickets if you can survive the fallout. For every ban, another small-town drugstore sold out of the record, and jukeboxes wore grooves deep enough to catch daylight. Wanda Jackson fused rockabilly snap with country twang, shaking fringe beneath spotlights that converted dance halls but rattled the starch in boardroom collars. Executives begged her to soften the rasp, trade leopard prints for lace, and turn the guitar down. She responded by cranking the amp until chandeliers quivered. Festivals quietly replaced her with safer acts. Chart positions dipped, no matter how ferociously crowds roared. Decades later, historians crowned her the queen of rockabilly, but during the scare age, she learned brilliance shrinks when measured by men with pearl cufflinks. Jean Shepherd never waited for historians. She toured endless backroads, speaking bluntly between songs about lineups that favored men sounding alike while women fought for a single slot. Backstage, she earned the label difficult, a scarlet adjective that locked doors faster than any scandal. When bookings dried, she rented community halls and kept singing, turning each night into a seminar on fairness. Years later, the Opry praised her endurance, but wilderness seasons carved scars invisible to ticket buyers. Barbara Mandrell arrived wielding virtuoso chops, steel guitar, saxophone, six-string pyrotechnics, yet reviewers fixated on her sparkle gowns, asking whether she was too polished, too Vegas, too ambitious. Ambition in a man reads as destiny. In a woman, it becomes a threat wearing rhinestones. Meanwhile, Lynn Anderson rode Rose Garden to worldwide acclaim, only to watch her label recast her as a mannequin. Photo shoots devoured rehearsal hours, and producers drenched tracks in syrupy strings to soften what they called strong features. Both women heard applause publicly, yet were sidelined privately whenever they reached for creative control. Dottie West studied those stumbles and demanded production authority before anyone offered permission. She co-wrote, co-arranged, and mentored Kenny Rogers, expecting respect in return. Instead, budgets shrank, promotional pushes stalled, and whispers suggested she retreat to songwriting behind the curtain. Dottie kept stepping into the spotlight anyway, but the red carpet shortened each season as gatekeepers tightened the velvet rope. Her chart descent was framed as market fatigue. Insiders knew better. Teenage prodigy Tanya Tucker faced a different snare, an industry ravenous to sculpt her into fantasy. Magazines counted boyfriends, graded eyeliner, and fretted over late-night escapades that paled beside antics celebrated when men did them. When Tanya vetoed scripted answers or refused another forced wardrobe change, columnists labeled her troublesome. That adjective stalked her airplay for years, yet she returned older and louder, proof survival itself can headline. Linda Ronstadt straddled genres and politics with equal fearlessness. One Las Vegas residency ended overnight after she dedicated a song to a documentary filmmaker certain patrons disliked. Security escorted her out. Country stations trimmed her catalog. Press releases cited format adjustments. Linda booked symphony halls and Broadway stages, but the silence on playlists left fans puzzled. Artistry alone cannot outsing a hostile volume knob. KT Oslin demolished ageism by topping charts at 45 with stories about middle-aged desire and debt. Crowds roared, but programmers shuffled her sound to off-peak slots once novelty headlines faded. She had not changed. The gatekeeper's patience had. Radio statistics told a convenient tale. Listeners wanted youth, while theaters overflowed with fans craving her seasoned voice. Connie Smith recognized the trap and chose quiet rebellion. After a burst of 60s hits, she felt demands to tour longer, smile wider, sing lighter. Instead, she scaled back, recording selectively and raising children. Critics called it self-sabotage. Connie called it sanity. Sometimes walking away is the loudest protest. Tammy Wynette discovered her throne sat on terms she never wrote. Managers treated her catalog like an ATM. Producers wielded veto power over songs hinting at independence. Health crises were spun as unreliability, granting businessmen cover to shelve projects they deemed risky. Tammy slipped new verses into acoustic encores, rebellions muffled by cheers, yet potent enough to unsettle those counting her royalties. Long before algorithms dictated playlists, midnight calls from sponsors governed spins. If a lyric hinted women might steer their own bodies or bank accounts, advertisers threatened to yank budgets. Station managers dutifully scratched the record. Payola hearings supposedly cleaned house, yet the same handful of men still decided whose 45 revolved. They preferred pliable voices to probing questions. Charlene Arthur retreated to Texas roadhouses after RCA's cold shoulder, hauling amps and teaching teenagers discarded guitar licks. Decades later, a bootleg surfaced online, its swagger enchanting dancers who had never heard her name. The Blacklist recoiled as a new audience discovered a godmother algorithms had forgotten. Barbara Mandrell's ambition cost more than reviews. A 1984 car crash shattered vertebrae and nearly stole her dexterity. Tabloids wondered if the accident might humble her. She returned wearing braces beneath sequins, proving virtuosity can survive disaster. Still, writers framed her comeback as surprising grace, a backhanded compliment implying she finally accepted modesty. Lynn Anderson battled marketing departments insisting glamour trumped musicianship. When she demanded raw pedal steel, producers stalled, claiming radio wouldn't spin anything that twangy. Out on the road, crowds begged for exactly that edge. The gap between boardroom projections and ticket buyer reality revealed Blacklist logic often misreads its own audience. Award ballots offered subtler sabotage. Gene Shepard joked winners could be predicted by noting who attended etiquette brunches. Voting members heard that outspoken nominees weren't present enough, or were changing directions. Coded phrases meaning the invisible list had lengthened. Rulebooks later changed, but committees never apologized to the names erased along the way. Digital streaming promised democracy, yet taught bias new disguises. Search a classic country playlist, and you may scroll past a dozen crooners before hearing Kitty or Loretta. Algorithms ingest historic inequities and regurgitate them as data-driven truth. Still, cracks widen. A Wanda Jackson riff soundtracked a viral dance challenge, her growl reborn for teenagers who never learned the history. The Blacklist gasps each time the past goes viral. Industry myth portrays gatekeeping as benevolent guidance, claiming women were shielded from failure by wiser heads. Archives reveal a harsher calculus. Executives tracked which taboo songs sold despite bans, then repackaged the same themes with male voices to cash in without controversy. After Loretta's anthem shook airwaves, several men pitched tunes about household liberation and were instantly greenlit. Proof danger lies not in the message but in the messenger. Even manufacturing joined the scheme. In the 70s, certain pressing plants ran smaller batches of records by risky women, citing material shortages. Retailers then reported slow sales, a prophecy they themselves created. When Wanda self-funded a live album, distributors flagged her shipment low priority. She rented a van and hand-delivered boxes, showing demand exists if vinyl reaches the shelf. KT Oslin, wary of repetition, coded autonomy into contracts, stipulating final say over singles and promos. Lawyers nodded, executives smiled. Then the label shelved her concept album, citing unfavorable forecasts. Months later, they approved a nearly identical project for a younger man and hired KT to sing background harmonies, a demotion packaged as opportunity. She accepted, delivered pristine vocals, then used the paycheck to bankroll her own tour, an elegant reversal of Blacklist math. Bonnie Guitar's producer Lenz caught injustices invisible to front-row fans. During a mix session, she isolated tracks to prove background singers, mostly women, carried choruses uncredited. When she pushed for liner notes, an executive quipped anonymity preserved the mystique. Bonnie snapped that mystique never paid rent. The exchange cost her a radio showcase, yet months later the same executive bragged publicly about acknowledging studio talent. Modern artists inherit both microphone and minefield. Platforms tout metrics as pure democracy, but playlists remain curated by humans who inherit bias with job titles. An algorithm may suggest a Tammy ballad after heartbreak songs, yet rarely will it guide listeners to Charlene's growl or Rose Maddox's hillbilly boogie. Discovery demands intention, and intention begins with stories like this, reminding us buried catalogs lie beneath surface feeds. There is, however, an emerging chorus of archivists, podcasters, and short-form historians rewriting liner notes in real time. They splice Gene Shepard quips into beat drops, remix Wanda banter as motivational snippets, and stitch Tammy's hidden verses over lo-fi loops. The mainstream sometimes sneers, but every viral snippet flips a switch in the data model, nudging algorithms to surface the originals. Each replay chips rust from an old lock. Thread these lives together and the pattern screams like feedback. Talent was rewarded until it threatened comfort. Then the reward became silence. Sometimes retaliation wore decorum, a polite rejection, a zeroed-out budget. Sometimes it was blatant. Sermons condemning sinful lyrics, rumors planted in columns, contracts yanked hours before taping. The outcome matched across eras. Airplay faded, audiences were diverted, and the Blacklist captured another verse. Erase a voice and you invite echoes. Modern playlists brim with singers channeling Kitty's grit, Wanda's swagger, Loretta's candor, Tanya's resilience, Linda's range, KT's wisdom, Barbara's precision, Dottie's assertiveness, Rose's fusion, Bonnie's ingenuity, Lynn's defiance, Connie's serenity, and Tammy's vulnerable fire. They may not know every ancestor by name, but lineage pulses beneath each daring chorus. Music is migratory. It slips under locked doors, rides car radios, burrows into memory, and waits for the right ear. So next time a programmer claims women don't test well or a festival offers one token slot between 10 male acts, remember the unwritten list still flickers behind LED screens. Ask why certain names plateau while others soar, why activism becomes divisive only when voiced in a higher octave. The Blacklist may have changed fonts, but its grammar still stalks hallways in subtler shapes. Which tale lingers? The coal miner's daughter laughing at taboos, the pants-wearing rocker shunned for swagger, the teenage phenom painted troublesome, the label owner ousted for knowing too much, the producer denied credit, the virtuoso forced to recover in silence. How many masterpieces never reached a microphone because their creators declined one after-hours favor? The hum behind those questions is the same electric wire buzzing through rehearsal spaces where new artists negotiate dreams and boundaries. Listen closely to your favorite track tonight. Between steel guitar bends and brushed snare whispers, you might detect a phantom melody belonging to a singer whose name never made the liner notes. That hidden refrain is an invitation. Dig, question, remember. History forgets only what we allow it to. Every playlist choice is a ballad. Every playthrough a flashlight. Every share a hammer prying boards off an old door. Lift those melodies into daylight and watch the blacklist shrink beneath the volume of voices it could never truly silence. Facing dusty myths also means facing grim arithmetic. In the late 70s, spin reports show weeks when no solo woman reached the country top 10, even while box office tallies proved female headliners outsold chart kings. Executives cited coincidence, yet backstage memos fretted about audience comfort whenever a woman neared primetime slots. Rose Maddox felt that chill hauling electrified hillbilly songs onto fairground stages. Promoters loved ticket lines, yet still placed her set before sunset. Money multiplies resistance. Bonnie Guitar understood contracts. She produced sessions, audited royalties, and asked why her name funded studio time while union credit flowed to a male official. She objected. By Monday, her release schedule vanished. The label claimed strategic redirection, but a junior engineer overheard an executive warn, "She knows too much." Knowledge became grounds for disappearance, wrapped in corporate politesse. Industry apologists say talent eventually rises. That tidy fable ignores art's ticking clock. A shelved project drains tour budgets. A canceled single kills momentum. A falsified radio test freezes bookings until heat cools. The blacklist isn't a door that reopens with patience. It is a sinkhole swallowing the years when an artist burns brightest. This, more than any headline scandal, is how eras are stolen. Yet memory, like vinyl, survives scratches. Each time a modern guitarist samples a Charlene riff or a DJ slips Kitty's Outlaw anthem between sleek singles, the needle rides buried grooves and revives colors thought lost. The sound feels brand new because suppression kept it from aging beside safer hits. That accidental preservation is the blacklist's unplanned mercy. Exiled voices arrive in the present, unfiltered, immediate, alive, ready to jolt algorithms still underestimating them. Listeners play a crucial role in that resurrection. Every replay registers as data, and modern brokers cannot ignore steady spikes. When an old performance clip trends, automated playlists follow. Suddenly a voice Nashville buried finds new ears in Berlin, Lagos, Manila. Comment sections light with disbelief that such power was hidden. Some users buy vinyl, others duet the song on social media. Each share stacks another brick beneath a bridge these women never walked. Truth travels on every replay. So what happens after you hit play? Maybe nothing more than 3 minutes of foot-tapping catharsis. Or maybe the ripple travels farther. A teacher slips the song into a history lesson on cultural resistance. A filmmaker licenses the track for closing credits, reintroducing the singer to a festival crowd. A streaming curator, puzzled by sudden metrics, digs through archives and refreshes an entire genre shelf. Each micro-decision widens the breach that once suffocated possibility. The blacklist fed on isolation, community starves it. When listeners tag friends, when musicians cite forgotten mentors, when writers mention a banned lyric in a review, they stitch a net beneath the next artist who dares to speak plainly. The industry notices momentum even when it refuses to admit responsibility. And momentum, like melody, travels. It hums through barroom monitors, headphones on crowded trains, cracked speakers in pickup trucks idling at dawn. It shivers across borders the original singers never got to cross, carrying their accents, defiance, and laughter into places that once seemed unreachable. Perhaps the most radical act is simply refusing to let silence finish the story. Keep searching. Keep asking who else was pushed aside, whose masters sit unreissued, whose television debuts were canceled an hour before airtime. Each rediscovered cut is proof that erasure was never unanimous, only temporary. Play it loud, share it wider, repeat. Because the past is not a museum of sealed glass cases. It is a record still spinning, and the stylus belongs to whoever is brave enough to drop the needle again. Do that often enough, and algorithms tilt, budgets shift, and young singers waiting in rehearsal rooms realize they won't have to trade their truth for airplay after all, because someone before them fought, someone listening now insisted, and the Blacklist finally completely ran out of ink.